Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spiritual Sunshine. Today, we're talking about Emanuel Swedenborg and what he had to say about ETs a couple hundred years ago, long before today's disclosures and whistleblowers. Emanuel Swedenborg did indeed share about what was happening on other planets and how ETs come in every shape and size, that they have their own societies connected to spiritual life, but often not religious life as we think of it. So join with us today in discovering more from this great thinker and revelator. Yes, today we are diving into the scientist turned mystic, Emanuel Swedenborg's thoughts and visions about beings on Jupiter, beings on Saturn, beings perhaps in the moon, perhaps in Venus and elsewhere, Mars and other planets outside our solar system as well. Yes, he wrote about these things in the mid 1700s and shared what he believed were the important aspects of these ET cultures. He didn't write about every single thing each one did, but he gave many examples that he saw, at least according to him, in the spiritual realm. He wrote about ETs that just had a deep, high connection with the divine, with the universe. He said most ETs live that way, much like many of our indigenous ancestors. We all have indigenous ancestors from somewhere, right? And often those indigenous cultures had a deep connection with the nature, with the beat of the universe, with the beat of the human body, with the earth, with the stars, with the planets, with other entities. Indeed, all of our indigenous cultures, as we know, talk about other entities. They have many names for them. Some call them fairies and fae. Some call them sky beings and jinn. Some call them so many other things that it's kind of amazing that we just don't want to connect the dots often. We don't really like to think that perhaps our ancient cultures had something truly real to share about um, spiritual beings, about ETs, about the roots of humankind. And yet we know in all these cultures that they tend to talk about how these beings from the sky in crazy ships, they even describe, from the Vedic traditions to the North American First Peoples traditions, sometimes from under the earth from another planet through a portal. I mean, it gets amazing. All these stories about the roots of humankind and how we've been helped along, and even, so to speak, evolved thanks to these ETs, often through gifts from them of their own blood, of their own, you could say, DNA, through gifts from them in terms of technology, whether that's farming or building things or even makeup. There's so many stories, and yet, for some reason, in our modern archaeology and histories, we tend to write everything off as myth, despite having so many similarities. Well, today I think it's a new day, right? We're learning more about how there could be ETs on planet Earth and interacting with planet Earth, how our ancient civilizations have markers everywhere, even in North America, where we thought, human beings had walked across the Bering Strait oh so many years ago, but not that many years ago. We're uncovering evidence of temples and pyramids and other things that's not hocus pocus evidence, but real evidence, according to the scientists, that these megalithic monuments were built um, tens of thousands of years ago, sometimes at least 10,000 years ago for some of them, long before we thought we were coming out of the hunter gatherer phase here on planet Earth. So it's kind of amazing that today we can take these things a little more seriously, and that we can give, real respect to our indigenous cultures that we've often kind of dismissed as being hokum in the past, if I can use such an old word. And Emanuel Swedenborg, a couple hundred years ago, fell into this tradition of talking about sky beings and talking about ETs, Um, and he said that in his visions, he saw these ETs on all these different planets from this solar system and from out of it that uh, sometimes had really amazing lives that always, I guess, had amazing lives, but really interesting ones, such as those that built their homes in trees and crafted the trees around them as they grew, such as those who may live underground on some planets and craft their cities underground using perhaps artificial lighting and things like that. He writes about their clothing often and some of their traditions and how varied it can be um, if they are wearing clothing, some don't. And also, he wrote about how their spiritual lives tend to be this high vibration because they are such an embodiment of our indigenous cultures. They have a similarly, if not much higher, high vibration because they've been doing it for thousands, tens of thousands, or millions of years. Um, so that's amazing. But he did talk about the other side, which is a more selfish orientation of ETs, where we all can get into that mindset, especially here on Earth, right? Of selfishness, of I'm separate from other beings, despite all the evidence around us, scientific and otherwise. Separate a human from the universe, and I'll give you everything I own, right? It's impossible. You can't separate a being from the universe no matter how hard you try. You can kill someone. You don't know what happens after, or at least most of us feel like we don't. Many of us feel like we don't. But you can't take someone out of the universe and have them survive. It's physics, it's gravity, it's the interaction of heat and our bodies, it's air, it's all these things that keep us alive. All these things make us one with the universe. And in fact, we really don't know the roots of all our past, our DNA, our brains, and all the things that influence it. But we do know that it's all part of the universe. It's all part of the one verse, the universe. And so, yes, sometimes ETs even will set themselves against that clear awareness just through their evolution. It's nothing really against them. It's kind of funny. We hold psychopaths uh, to kind of an angry standard, but really they're just doing what their brain chemistry is orienting them to do. You know, they don't have feelings in the way that we do. They don't think the way we do, and yet often we hold them to a certain emotional standard because you know it's clear why they hurt people. They really can destroy lives in catastrophic scales if allowed. But in reality, it's the spirit moving through maybe a more dense mode of being for the rest of our edification and for their edification in time so that they can grow higher and stronger eventually, I believe, even if they have to go through hell to get there. Now, that's kind of the heart of our lesson today that, you know, when we think about the world from a purely selfish mindset, we shut ourselves off from wisdom around us, from the heart of the universe. We think the way I think about it today is the way it is, and everyone else is an idiot for not agreeing. And then what happens? Months, if not years later, we suddenly realize, oh, I was wrong about that. But still, often we take this positioning of the selfish ET, of the selfish human being, of the psychopath, so to speak, where no, it's my day or it's no day. I'm the only living being as far as I can tell. The only evidence I have in my inner scientific experiments is that I'm alive. People move and talk, but I'm the only being. That's how a lot of egotistical narcissists think and often can believe even. But it's their own way of expressing the unity of life. Well, I'm the only life. Well, yeah, you're right in a sense, but there are other emotions, there are other points of consciousness. That's your life too. It's not just the consciousness seeing your mind here, it's that consciousness which has no quality, seeing other minds elsewhere. seeing other parts of the universe, seeing other worlds, seeing so many other things, and also seeing the hurt and the pain that you cause them. That's why often when all these ancient traditions talk about afterlife and even near-death experiences, they talk about life reviews and what happens, seeing what happens uh, what happened in the past and what happens to people that we've hurt. It's kind of amazing. I can actually attest to this. I had a near-death experience over 12, 13 years ago where I had a life review. It's crazy. I kid you not. And you hear about this in NDEs, but I wasn't into NDE stuff until after I had that life review because I was like, what? That was insane, right? What happened was I saw my life, and I believe the way I experienced it was going backwards, actually, towards my birth, so to speak. And it was the weirdest moments that I saw. Not everything was highlighted, but you could really feel the emotionality of those moments and kind of learn, I don't know, like the encoding of your life um, in this life. And I can keep going about it, but it's something that many cultures talk about, whether it's the reading of your book of life, on Judgment Day, or near-death experiences with the life review, and other traditions talk about a life review as well. It's something talked about across these cultures, even in Buddhist circles and others, that we tend not to want to connect the dots. Like maybe this is a real experience, right? It's so funny. We have so many things like that today. And you don't hear about that consistently as part of culture, as part of the news, part of our entertainment. No, those are one-offs. That's the rarity, right? The ones that get past, the producers and the bigwigs or what have you, the fat cats, so to speak. And often they're like cats. They'll attack anything that they think will feed them, right? And that's the unfortunate truth today, that we have at the top of so many of these pyramid schemes we call economics today, um, fat cats. It is what it is. The people who are willing to fight and to chew people up to get there, get there. And we don't have good safeguards because they use blackmail. They use, as we've learned through Epstein and others, this sexual blackmail. Just the fear of reprisal. Often all it takes is someone threatening your family, and you fall in line, right? And who's willing to do that? Well, someone who has that lack of emotion at the core of their being. And I'm not talking about a peace lack of emotion. I'm talking more of a cold, calculating, dominating lack of emotion. It's like a reptile, so to speak. Not every reptile, I don't think, in the universe, but like many of our reptiles um, here on Earth, we connect this coldness to this cold viewpoint, and also because they attack things in a similar fashion. But they have families too. So I don't want to villainize reptiles, if you get my drift, or even cats, because I have two cats and I love them. They're amazing. But there's a reason we use these images, because we see this cold-blooded killer, and really human beings are the embodiment of that in our experience, and are much worse than any animal that I know of. Oh, my little ones banging at the glass. Hello, cutie. Hi, I'll be there in a minute. So yeah, truly to wrap things up, it's kind of amazing to think about these connections between indigenous cultures and some of the disclosure process that's happening now. If you pay attention to the whistleblowers, they've said amazing things, and you can get to a lot of it. But whether you do or not, it's a time of unveiling, of revelation. It's a time of coming back to appreciating our past, from Emanuel Swedenborg to these indigenous cultures. It's time to really see who has been speaking truth to us for all these years, and who hasn't, and who still refuses to even try. So good luck to you. God luck to you in your own endeavors with truth, with love, with expressing the reality all around us, scientifically, spiritually, that we've come to understand. that we're one, that we are one, and there's no separating you from the spiritual sunshine at all of our cores. Peace.